I'm here with Professor Harry Joel of the University of Wisconsin-Eau. Harry, can you tell me what's going on behind us here?
Yeah, we have students who've come out here on this afternoon now, and we can take a look at they're collecting ground penetrating radar surveys. So that's FM radio waves, and we're putting those into the ground. That's the same FM radio waves you have in your vehicles when you listen, right? So I was listening to NPR on the way over, and it's the same frequency. So we're putting those into the ground. They reflect off disturbances under the surface in a non-invasive, non-destructive way. So the ground is left exactly the way it is when we arrived. We're also collecting topography, so we can get the changes in the topography of the surface here.
Can you talk to me for a minute about this ongoing partnership between the University of Wisconsin-Eau Claire and the Friends of Potter's Field?
So Sophie and Dave, originally contacted me because they were looking at developing this, selecting this off. Now what you see is very different than the way it was before. The amount of work that's gone in here to preserve this site is amazing. So the question was, we don't know where all the burials are, and they knew that we were doing ground penetrating radar work in the Baltics, looking at Holocaust sites, and from that, the request came, and I wanted to come out here with a class and a lab and talk with students, and we came out for the first survey and take a look at that, and then we came to Memorial Day service, which was very moving. And one of the colleagues that came along, Martin Gadel, went to school with Sophie, and so there's all of a sudden this, community relations that are going on. We know each other and things like that. So we've been coming out with multiple volunteer students. This is not a class, so they're not, they could get credit, but they're not getting credit, doing this. And Tristan took the lead originally. He has since graduated and has still got students here to carry on and collect the data sets that we've been collecting. So you could say this is a live learning lab where everybody's learning, because there are young students here who are going to go on projects next year who have never done what they're doing today.
You've been coming here for 4 years now. What do we know about the Potter's Field Cemetery here in Dunn County that we didn't know before you started?
Well, I think the most important to me is meeting people and the collaboration that goes on. But in the Potter's Field itself, we've been imaging the multiple sites. We have the aerial imagery from the drones. We're right by an airport here, so we need special permissions, and our pilot has got those permissions to be able to do that. And so we've got some beautiful imagery of this site. And in addition to that, we've been able to, pick out burial sites, right? So those would be the potential burial sites. And last year we had a very moving time of putting in the crosses, where students and Sophie and Dave were putting crosses in at the more likely places that their burials are. And, it's like anywhere here. Are they exactly where they are? Probably not. But you know what? It's better to memorialize someone who's passed away than it is to have nothing.
And after you finish the work today, is there a future? Is there more to be done here?
Well, I think there's a multi-part answer to that. I says, we'll see how far we get today. We know that there's a storm coming in later today. So we'll see how far we get. We get as far as we can. We would like to finish everything off. And there's a side area that we would like to go. I think eventually we'd like to go on the other side of the fence, because we think there's more. That's where the majority of the graves we found are. But I think a bigger thing that I think Dunn County Potter's Field has to look at is, do we become that type section or that type society that's used a variety of other tools to teach to other Potter's Fields associations, and that we have a skill set here, which is all volunteer, right? No one's getting paid here, right? But what we learn is that we know what works and what doesn't work. And I think that becomes very important, because there's lots of Potter's Fields that, I can go to Eau Claire's. Some of it we just don't know where some of these places are, right? Well, we got to get the historians involved, people like Sophie, and get them involved in, get the Sophie of all these other counties to look for these areas. And I think, everything from drone imagery to potentially LiDAR down the road, I think will be huge. doing ground penetrating radar surveys with the local universities and colleges and high schools. Like, it'd be great to get high school students out here, right? To say, hey, this is your community. Why don't you help collect the data and things like that, and do demos. For me, it's we know that there's 100+ burials not found, right? The bigger picture is that the future of our country, the future generations are right here learning here and not gaming on their little phone or something like that when they get home. So I think that's a bigger thing that the Potters Field does here.
What a pleasure to speak to somebody who, after a distinguished career, is still so passionate about what they do. Harry, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for the invite. Have a good one.